slap bang in the middle of the mid-90s, I popped out. Growing up, I was surrounded by love, adoration, support, and encouragement from my parents. I grew up in a Christian household, sure, but I went to church because I thought it was the done thing. That's what you did on a Sunday. I like to describe myself as a wallpaper Christian in that period. I talked the talk, but I didn't walk the walk. By wallpaper Christian, I mean, when you look at wallpaper on the wall, it looks lovely. Got lovely patterns on it, might have a little bit of raised bumps, makes it slightly pop out a little bit. Looks brilliant, can bright up any room. When you peel it away from the wall, it's two-dimensional, it's floppy, it's a whole bunch of gunky stuff underneath. And that's what I mean by I was a wallpaper Christian. I looked nice on the wall. If you peeled me off, you'd find nothing underneath. And so, growing up, I talked the talk. I prayed openly in front of people. I gave my 2 cents on a matter from a Christian perspective. But deep down, I never truly believed. I never truly looked at myself and said, yes, I am born again. Growing up, all the way through high school, I carried this wallpaper Christian belief with me. It was only until that I went off to university, to Bible college, that I truly found out what it means to not believe. I was surrounded day and night by people trying to force me to do things, to get me to do the things the way they do it, to attend Bible study, to attend devotions, to do good Christian stuff. But all the way through that, I didn't want to do any of that because, again, I was a wallpaper Christian. I talked the talk, but I didn't walk the walk. I didn't pray. I didn't read my Bible. I didn't try and deepen my faith with further study. It was in my 3rd year that I lost my faith. In my 3rd year at that Bible college, I truly said to myself, I can't believe this anymore. I remember where I was sat. You see, I was renting a flat outside of campus. I was sat in the living room. I was staring out of the window at my desk. And I remember looking out and seeing a beautiful sunset. Gorgeous reds, oranges, yellows, contrasting shadows on the clouds. Because of the experiences I had with other Christians, I said to myself, if this is the best of Christianity, if this truly is the best of wanting to come to this university, I want nothing to do with it. And so, from that point on, I became a vehement, vile, hate-filled atheist. I never wanted to believe in anything after that. I just wanted to spread hatred, to demean and belittle people online, to insult and put down people's faith, calling them stupid, silly, idiotic, and various other words under the sun. Then I lost faith in that. I lost interest. I was still an atheist, 100%. But debating and arguing never interested me after that point. So I decided to pack it all in. I didn't do anything to do with faith for the next 1.5 years. And then, during COVID lockdown, my world changed. Picture the scene. In 2019, a wet market in Wuhan, China, reports a mysterious new illness that rapidly starts to sweep across the globe. This virus was COVID-19 and crippled the entire world. As such, governments around the world, including the one in the UK, placed everyone under lockdown to try and stop the spread of the virus. At the time I was working in the NHS, but I was also dealing with an abusive and bullying manager. I had to come off work because of stress leave. So I was sat here, in this very spot, on my computer, killing time. I was on Facebook, and just before I go into this, if you know anything about Facebook, you'll know that Facebook tracks you around the web and serves you ads based upon what you search. Now remember, I hadn't searched anything to do with God in the last 1.5 years. And so what should I find? An advert advertising an Alpha course. An Alpha course is run by the Church of England, but many different churches of different denominations run them. The whole point is to encourage and ease the conversations around faith, God, spirituality, that sort of thing. But the course is ultimately designed to bring people to Christ. Having grown up in the church, I knew exactly what an Alpha course was, what it was designed to do. And remember, I hadn't searched anything to do with God in around about 1.5 years. So there was no reason for this to be on my homepage. And yet, in June of 2020, as I was sat right here in this spot, there it was, on my homepage. I had this feeling within me, and it said, you should sign up. What's the worst that could happen? And so, after not really giving it much thought, I filled out the form and hit submit. After that point, something very strange happened. I had to know. I had to know if there was a God. So began vehement academic research into whether or not God was real, and if God was indeed real, which God? So I started consuming anything I could get my hands on. Books, films, documentaries, YouTube videos, podcasts, articles, anything. And I would stay up until 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and get up at 7 o'clock. And it would feel like I had 9 hours of sleep. This is completely out of character for me. I need to get a good night's sleep, otherwise I feel horrible. But nonetheless, here I was, doing academic research until 4, 5 o'clock in the morning every single night for about a month. I started looking into whether or not God existed. And then the evidence pointed me to the fact that there is a very good argument for the fact that God does exist. So, after that point, which God? I started looking into everything I could get my hands on. Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, agnosticism, atheism, anything. All of the major world religions I looked into with a non-biased perspective. I looked at the facts on both sides of the fence, and even on the fence itself, whether we could actually be sure if this religion was true, if there was any truth contained within it. And so, one by one, they started to tumble off my list. Buddhism, gone. Sikhism, gone. Hinduism, gone. Narrowed it down and down and down, until I got to Islam and Christianity. By this point, the Alpha course had already started. I'd done the first week, introduced myself as an atheist, and had some friendly but interesting conversations around faith and things like that. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that we didn't get the topics ahead of time, we got them the night before. And so, after the first meeting, I had narrowed it down between Islam and Christianity. And so I knew I had to research the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. If these claims hold water, Christianity has the more valid argument, whereas Islam vehemently denies that Christ was crucified, died, and rose from the dead. So I looked into it. I looked into anything on both sides of the fence, and again, in the middle. My research was strictly academic, weighing up the facts on each side and coming to an educated conclusion. So I began my strict academic, non-biased research. I looked at Christian apologists such as Dr. David Wood, Dr. Gary Habermas, cross-examined Josh McDowell, Sean McDowell, Bob of Speaker's Corner. And I also looked at Muslim apologists such as Dr. Shabir Ali, Ali Dawa, Muhammad Hijab, reading the Quran as well. It's at this point that I realized more and more that the evidence for Islam didn't stack up against the evidence for Christianity and the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. By this point, I hadn't even considered the possibility of becoming a Christian. But I wasn't ready to give up my atheistic intentions just yet. I looked at scholars of the New Testament such as Bart Ehrman, who is an agnostic atheist, does not believe that Christ claimed to be God or that he was raised from the dead, just finds it very interesting. I also looked into people like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. Arguments against God and against Jesus being risen from the dead and being God himself. But the whole thing was starting to worry me. My viewpoint, from an atheistic point of view, was becoming more and more worn out, undermined, cracked, and flawed. But all throughout this journey, which took around about a week of solid research every single day, I had no idea what was coming up on the horizon. And that came in the second meeting of the Alpha course. I had an email come into my inbox, and surprise, surprise, what was the topic? The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. The very thing I had been researching the entire week before without any foreknowledge. And so, the next day at 7 o'clock, I hit the join button and joined the Zoom meeting. I was sat in this very room, in this very spot, at this very desk, where I clicked the join button on that Zoom meeting. I was unusually quiet. If you know me, you'll know that I am very, very chatty, a little bit weird, but very friendly. But I was very, very quiet that evening. And for good reason. In my head, I've been going over exactly what I've been learning and how my worldview around me had crumbled. I like to describe it like this. In my mind's eye, I took a step back. It's like every single time I watched a video, read an article, read a book, watched a documentary, I was putting some cement down and laying a brick. Putting some cement down and laying a brick. It's only until I took a step back that I saw this massive wall in front of me that said evidence. I couldn't go around it, couldn't go above it, couldn't go below it. And so, as a rational and logical person, I had a choice to make. I could either be true to myself and intellectually honest and accept the evidence that I had been researching, or I could be intellectually dishonest with myself and lie to myself and reject it. I had no choice. I was defeated. I could not resist. So, in a metaphorical sense, I chose to burst through the wall and accept the evidence. I stayed behind after the meeting, and to their surprise, I recounted everything that I had been going through the past month and why I then had decided to properly give my life to Christ. They were taken aback. They'd never had anyone want to become a Christian in the second session before. But they were very happy that I did. And let me tell you, no one forced me to accept the evidence. No one forced me to make a decision. I had to decide myself to come to Christ. And at the end of the day, you too will have to choose to accept or reject Christ. God will respect your decision either way. He doesn't want anyone to spend eternity with him who doesn't want to be there. But our choices have consequences, and we must suffer those consequences. We live in a fallen world. As such, that's why Christ had to come down to pay atonement for our sins with his blood on that cross. He was the perfect sacrifice, the Lamb of God. And if you know anything about ancient Hebrew culture, you'll know that a lamb was slaughtered in the temple simply to cover the sins of the people for that year. But because it's an animal, it's not perfect. But God is perfect. Jesus led a completely sin-free life and gave his life for you watching this right now. So I ask you, Is God trying to get your attention like he got mine? I encourage you all to do your own research, to follow the path. God will reveal himself to you if you want him to. If you come at this with an open heart, God will reveal himself to you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's blessed you in some way. But I'd like to leave you with the motto of this channel, 1 Peter 3:15. It's that last part that quite often we forget as Christians. So if you are going out trying to win souls for Christ, or having conversations with a loved one or colleague, remember, we must strive to be as Christ-like as possible and show love and acceptance wherever we go. Because after all, Christ did that for you. And if you are watching this video now and you haven't given your life to Christ, I implore you to do it today, because you may not have a tomorrow.